Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and speech therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to SLP Learning Series, a podcast series presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. The SLP Learning Series explores various topics of speech-language pathology. Each season dives deeper into a topic with a different host and guests who are leaders in the field. Some topics include stuttering, AAC, sports concussion, teletherapy, ethics, and more. Each episode has an accompanying audio course on SpeechTherapyPD.com and is available for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. Now, come along with us as we look closer into the many topics of speech-language pathology.
Welcome. Hello. Welcome back to some of you who may be joining again for another episode. Welcome to some of you who this may be your first time joining us. We are on this continued journey, if you will, of self-discovery, self-connection, and growth. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Stephanie Michelle Swigert. I am a licensed and practicing school-based SLP. I am out in Los Angeles, California, and I also hold a certification as a teacher of mindfulness, meditation, and compassion-based practices, and my pronouns are she, her. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today on this episode. Thank you to SpeechTherapyPD.com for hosting me for just this incredible opportunity for us to really have holistic self-development, some of my favorite PD. I really value learning and growing with professional development in this area. I really value a work-life balance, and peace and harmony on the job is super important to me. It matters. So I hope you see that my content today really resonates and aligns with some of my core values. And I also value your time. So thank you for spending it on me. Before we get started, let's see, I have a few things I do need to alert you to. All right, this podcast provides informational and educational content only, not a substitute for professional therapy. Discussions aim for self-discovery and offer mindful strategies for addressing work conflict. Suggestions aren't definitive solutions for your circumstances. Your choices are your responsibility. Please seek professional advice for personalized support. By listening, you acknowledge that information is general and may not suit your needs. Exercise caution and consult relevant professionals before making decisions. Now, let's dive into today's episode. All right. As I always like to do, I do need to tell you, each episode is 60 minutes, guys. We'll be here for an hour, and this is also going to be offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. I also have to let you know of my financial and non-financial disclosures. For financial disclosures, I do own a non-public agency in Southern California, Golden State Speech Pathology Services. This is a staffing agency. And I do also receive an honorarium for this podcast or speaking fees for the different content that I share on SpeechTherapyPD.com. And I have sales for digital courses, 2 different digital courses that are out there. As far as non-financial disclosures, I do not have any to name at this time. Now that we got all the housekeeping out of the way, I want to hear from you. Everybody who is here, give me a little shout out in the chat box where you are coming from. You can throw in your city, throw in your state, wherever you're tuning in from. Maybe it's from your office, maybe it's from your couch, maybe you're sitting in your car. I just want to know where all of you guys are here on this technology. It was so cool. In the episode last week, we had somebody all the way from Japan. I was like, woo, Japan. Sunnyvale, California. Christina, yes. Austin, Texas. Joni, I think you're a repeat offender. I've seen you in here maybe. Ali Sandoval, San Diego. Yes. Abigail, school-based, woohoo, from Los Angeles. All right, Abigail, we're going for coffee after this, or maybe a glass of wine. I don't know what you prefer, but I'm with you, girl. All right, we got Lancaster, California. Yes, not too far from Los Angeles, and that's Kether. Yes, thank you guys for popping in. Anybody else want to share where they're coming from? California seems to be a popular state that comes up a lot in the chat box on these episodes. Wherever you are tuning in from, thank you so much for being here. All right. As we continue to do so at the beginning of each episode, I really want to take a moment just to kind of rein it all in, leave the day behind, collecting kind of right here, right now in this present moment. So what I would like to do with you guys is really take a moment. This is an exercise where we're going to self-connect. And this is an experiential exercise, so I would love it. I want to invite you to participate along. And if it feels right for you and it's safe to do so, go ahead and gently close your eyes or use a soft downward gaze. Find what's comfortable for you. And I just want you to relax into whatever position you are in right now. If you're standing, sitting, lying down. And now this breath body needs exercise. That's what we're going to call it, the breath body needs exercise that we will do. It really ties into the theme that we're going to talk about today. It ties in really nicely because when we can learn to connect with ourselves more, guess what? We're going to improve our connections with others. And this is a practice that it's super simple just to incorporate even for less than 5 minutes a day, every day, if you can do that in your schedule. There are massive benefits and research supports it for all my research lovers out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking a deep breath in. And then we're going to release that breath. But when we release it, we're going to release it for just a bit longer than the amount of time it took you to breathe in. And then we're repeating that, right? We're repeating that. So each time you breathe in, then when you breathe out, you're allowing yourselves to breathe out just a little bit longer than your breath in. Let's try it. Just letting that day fall off of you. Letting it go, connecting to your body now, remaining in this position. And while we're connecting to our body, again, continuing the in-breath and the out-breath with the out-breath extended longer, connecting with the body now, noticing any sensations that are there for you and alive. And no need to label it or figure out the name for it, just notice it. Notice if there's tingling, any chills, maybe any aches, or pains, or tightness, or tension. Maybe you're noticing the rise and the fall of your breath. Maybe you're noticing it, your shoulders rising and falling, or your chest or your belly moving. And now gently in your mind, I want you to just name what you're feeling right in this very moment. Maybe it's anxiousness because you were rushing to find that Zoom link. Maybe it's exhaustion from the day that you're trying to leave behind right now. Maybe it's hunger because you're getting to that hour where you're ready for dinner or a meal. Just notice whatever you're feeling and quietly name it in your mind. And once you've identified that feeling, let's now connect it to a need. What need is met or is not met that's creating that feeling? What is your body messaging to you or signaling to you right now in this moment? So if you were anxious, is it because you have a need for ease in your schedule that you're not getting? Or if you're exhausted, is it because of your need for just rest or self-care? If you're feeling a little full, yeah, because you just ate dinner, noticing that, yes. See if you can identify a need behind how you're feeling right now. And if the need is a need that's not met, what I want you to do is try imagine now this need being met. Imagine what our bodies might feel like. What would the sensations be in our body if our needs were met? Would there be a physical relaxation of the muscles? Would there be a lightness in your chest? Would your eyebrows start to soften and your jaw relax? And lastly, ask yourself, how can I get this need met in the future? What's a strategy to meeting this need moving forward. And when you're ready, a breath in. Opening your eyes, coming back to the screen, because it's in this space here together where we're learning, where we can just release the day, connect together, and just be here, learning and growing with compassionate communication skills. We're calming our nervous system and regulating ourselves. So thank you for joining me in that self-connection exercise, and let's dive into part 1 of our chat. I want to share that the person who filled out our questionnaire that was sent out via email has opted not to appear live on the air. We absolutely respect and we value their privacy. They have, however, generously provided us with a detailed case scenario via this questionnaire. And I believe that the experience that they're sharing is incredibly valuable. It's important to explore. I think we're going to have people that absolutely can relate to it. And I want to let you know that we do have permission from our case participant to share their situation on today's episode, Navigating Toxic Workplaces with Compassionate Communication, a Journey to Empowerment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some of their insights and their story on their behalf. Again, thank you for just allowing them to remain anonymous. And as always, what I want to do is I want to invite this to be a conversation. This is going to be a shared experience with you guys in that chat box, all you guys in California, all the places that you're coming from. I do want to hear from you. So if you've drifted away for a second, come back to me, because your questions, your comments, your insights are highly encouraged. I want to hear from you. We're all learning together. And I've also prepared something special for you. If you haven't done so already, you can scan the QR code in the handouts on your speechtherapypd.com account to download a workbook companion. This is a tool that we're going to use today as we navigate today's topic. Let's move on to our case study today. This is the exact words that is coming from the questionnaire that they filled out. And they said, when we asked them, what is your situational conflict or challenges, current or past, and how is it really impacting you, whether it's your worry, your stress, your well-being, and include as many details, but no names. We don't want to gossip with names. So here is what our participant had to share. And these are exact words. This fall, for the first time in my life, I was exposed to a toxic workplace culture. The 2 out of 3 teachers in a daycare ignore my arrival and even my greeting each time I come for an ABA session for a 2-year-old girl. They do not thank me for my work and even remove the teddy bear that I gave the girl 2 months ago as a gift. The other children in her group, however, are allowed to have their favorite toys, stuffed animals during naps. Despite their continuous efforts to demonstrate who is boss, the child in my care is making a statistically significant improvement in social emotional behavior. She completely stopped hitting children, screaming and pushing others. Instead, she is able to communicate her needs and wants verbally. And she is the only one in 12 children using the words please, thank you, and excuse me meaningfully and consistently. She is 2 years and 10 months old now. All right. So I imagine that this is a very challenging environment or a workplace culture at this particular daycare. And to this person who submitted this, if you're here today and you're listening, I do want to say it's very unfortunate that you are facing certain behaviors from 2 out of the 3 teachers at the daycare. And I imagine even myself, after reading this, that maybe you have some really strong needs for acknowledgement, for appreciation, common courtesy on the job, maybe for community, maybe a sense of feeling like you belong. So that need for belonging, or maybe that need for respect. And I'm guessing that due to your circumstances, since you're not here to ask, I'm guessing intuitively that this may have caused you numerous feelings, some loneliness, maybe sadness, disappointment, frustration, maybe even some anger. So the question on the questionnaire that we did ask the participant was, are there specific emotions that you find more challenging to express? Because we're going to talk about how do we navigate this type of workplace. And our participant did share my grief after the recent loss of my husband. Let's just take a moment to take that in. I'm very sorry for your loss. I cannot imagine the pain that you're going through right now with the recent loss of your husband. And please know that I'm here for you if you need anything, if you want to talk, if you want to share memories, if there's anything practical that I can help with, please don't hesitate to connect with me. Your feelings are valid, and I'm here to support you in this difficult time. Just taking a breath in and a breath out, just holding space now for that challenge for our participant and for all the challenges out there that we all hold. I want to tap into our chat box really quickly. Anyone here that's listening ever experience what you imagine would be a toxic workplace environment? Maybe you weren't accepted into certain social groups, maybe comments were made about you. This really highlighted your needs for respect. You were feeling like you needed respect, you needed consideration, or maybe you had unmet needs for emotional safety on the job. Go ahead and just throw me an all caps yes in that chat box if you can relate to being in a situation like that. I want to see how many people are with us who know all about a toxic workplace culture. Christina, yes, my first job, I'd go in the bathroom and cry. Yes. Joni, yes, it was toxic for 8 years. Oh, Joni, wow. I imagine that was horrifying. 8 years. Abigail, yes, yes. So we've all experienced it at some point. I've personally worked in environments where my need for belonging and community were not met. I felt disappointed. I felt disconnected from my colleagues. And this was a really hard space to be in. I was anxious. I remember every day when I pull up in the parking lot, I was anxious to go into that building. And all I could focus on was what I perceived to be this negative energy, these lower vibrations that literally were just all around and closing in on me. And I cried too. I cried a lot at my particular site. It was really dark time for me, no doubt. You can read more about my particular story I point out on my website at goldenstateofmindpd.com, because that story is so imprinted in my mind. It's like a core memory now that I will not forget. And I can honestly say I'm grateful I'm not at that site anymore. Allie, yes, the office ignoring my hi when I walk in the school. Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to share now is thank you to those of you who let me know that you can relate. Let's really explore these signs and impacts of a toxic workplace culture on our professional well-being and our performance. And that's really our first objective here. Because in nonviolent communication, compassionate communication, which again is founded by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, and you can learn more about him at cnvc.org, Center for Nonviolent Communication.org. He has a term called life alienating communication, communication that uses blame, criticism, judgment, diagnoses, rather than focusing on our own observations, neutral observations, our own universal feelings, our own universal needs, met or not met, and then making requests that are positive, clear, and actionable to create more understanding and connection between people. Why am I telling you this? Using the term toxic workplace is a form of, or a way to label using life alienating phrases, right? Toxic workplace. We're judging our workplace, right? So this is life alienating communication. And in practicing compassionate communication, the goal of this podcast, it's really important to make the shift into really specific behaviors or actions that you're noticing that don't align with our values, our desires, or what's important to us, rather than labeling it. We're going to needle into what are those neutral observations, right? Because when we're describing a workplace negatively, such as using this judgment, blame, criticism, all of the life alienating communication, that's communication that's now dividing us. It's separating us. It's disconnecting us. And it's very common in our culture where we can be very disconnected from others. But when we are, this leads to increased stress, decreased collaboration. We're less productive on the job. Our well-being is impacted. And maybe even our relationships now are like tanking, right? So the importance of learning how to reframe our statements, even in just our mind's eye, right? Learning how to reshift our statements about a work environment from evaluation to observation. And again, we're going to be following Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's first step in nonviolent communication. This lies in now connecting our expression, the way we want to share what we want to say, with our values, and creating now a connection with whoever it is that we're talking to, whoever is our communication partner. Right? I mean, that's the goal. It's shifting our thinking to neutral observations, because what happens now is this minimizes the risk that, believe it or not, all of our biases leak through in everything we do, everything we say, and all of our actions. So if we're thinking in life alienating communication, you can probably believe that that's seeping through even when we're trying not to have it seep through in our interactions with others. So now this shift that we're doing, both for ourselves and others, creates this objective picture of the situation. And now when I get involved with confronting somebody or having that difficult conversation with others, it's going to be a little bit harder to argue against concrete facts, right? And it helps to build transparency. I just recently had a district tell me last week when I went with concerns, thank you for your transparency. The transparency is noted, it's seen, right? And now this allows team members to approach discussions because they're not defensive. The district wasn't defensive with me. I wasn't blaming them, right? And now we've got more empathy in our conversation. We've got more collaboration. We're strategizing together. So the rule of thumb really is neutral language promotes a more professional, more respectful, just this open environment now where, hey, we can break it down and start strategizing. We can problem solve together because everybody's in it. Everybody's in it to do the thing, right? We're not all like closing our ears and running in the other direction. So if you're experiencing a toxic workplace, right, we all want to get very specific about what we're observing. And then I want to share a 4-step process for managing it. Okay, so this is in your handouts, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this into the chat box as well so that you have it. The first one is number 1, bring awareness to your judgmental thoughts. Number 2, connect those thoughts to unmet needs. Number 3, strategize ways to meet those needs. Number 4, offer empathy to yourself or others. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some examples now where we can practice this. We can make this shift and we can follow these 4 steps that are here. And I want to pretend, for the purpose of this episode, that your judgment thought is, okay, let's say the SLPA is stabbing me in the back, right? They're stabbing me behind the back. They're sharing information about me with a principal without me being present. Okay, so we've got the backstabbing. We've got the backstabbing SLPA, right? And that's the life alienating communication. So number 1, we bring awareness to our judgment thought. The judgment thought is a backstabbing SLPA, right? It's very clear. Then number 2, we connect those thoughts to our unmet needs in the situation. What am I needing? So I want to hear from the chat box. Pop it in if you will. I want this to be super interactive. I want to hear what you guys are thinking. I want to hear if you're with me. What do you think an SLP is needing when they have the thoughts that the SLPA is stabbing them in the back? When you're being stabbed in the back, what are you needing in that moment? Can anybody popcorn some needs that you might have? And this isn't to trick you or to make a hard test. All right, clear communication, yes, between the SLP and SLPA, yes. Need the SLPA to bring concerns to you, yes. Again, communication, trust, Melanie, yes. Respect and courtesy, absolutely. Communication, clarity, yes, Allie, I love the clarity. I love that. I am absolutely in agreement with all of those needs. You guys are right on point. So that rolls us right into step 3. Now we're going to strategize to meet those needs for respect, for clarity, for trust, whatever it might be for you, right? Some strategies might be, do I have direct communication with the SLPA? Do I approach them? Do I go and have that type of one-on-one conversation? Do I get a supervisor to come in and kind of converse with the 2 of us so we're all together? Or what are some ways that I can create some clear boundaries? So you strategize ways to create clear boundaries. These are strategies now to meeting our needs, right? And then the 4th step is empathy. And empathy is both ways. I want to empathize with both people, for myself and for the SLPA, right? If I'm the SLP. So if I'm giving empathy to myself and I'm the SLP, I might say something like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty hurt. And I notice I'm really frustrated by the comments of the SLPA. I notice that, right? I feel it. Or it's understandable that I would want to work in an environment where I have positive well-being, right? It's okay to prioritize my emotional and mental health thinking about this, right? And then we can offer empathy to the SLPA. That's the hard part for people. So it's like, what does that look like? So I might say something like, you know what? I can see that my coworker right now is struggling with an overloaded caseload and workload, and they might have a lot of challenges and be feeling really stressed in their role right now. Or, you know what? I think that SLPA might be expressing their concerns or frustrations in a way that might not be productive, right? Or I might say, you know what? Maybe the SLPA isn't even aware of the impact that their actions is having on me right now. and how that it might benefit from having a constructive conversation, right? So it's the empathy both ways.
Are you taking advantage of our new amazing feature? The certificate tracker. The free CE tracker allows you to keep track of all of your CEUs, whether they are earned with us at speechtherapypd.com or through another provider. Simply upload your certificate to your registered account and you're all set. So come join the fastest growing CE provider, speechtherapypd.com.
I want to point out, if I could say this in all caps, this is so super important. Empathy involves understanding and acknowledging feelings without necessarily agreeing with the behavior. We don't have to agree with what the SLPA is doing. But by expressing empathy, what you're doing now is you're at least opening that door to more constructive communication and quite possibly a resolution. So again, empathy for yourself, empathy for others, it opens that door for that constructive communication to problem solve together, but it does not mean that you are accepting or agreeing that the behavior is okay. All right. Let's try another one. Get ready for your chat box. I got a little situation for you. Let's pretend that you're working in a school system, right? Let's pretend that your judgmental or criticizing thought is that there's a SPED teacher that is really unhappy and super gossipy, and they gossip way too much in the school cafeteria. And I know that doesn't happen in any of the schools you work in. There is no gossip in the school cafeteria. So the first thing you do is you identify your evaluation, right? That teacher is such an unhappy whatever, and they're so gossipy, right? So you got the unhappy, gossipy SPED teacher. We've identified it. Number 2 is you identify your unmet needs. So this is you guys, chat box, jump in. What do you think an SLP is needing when maybe they're going into that cafeteria to have some lunch and they're sitting next to a SPED teacher that's like super unhappy, gossiping about everybody at lunch, and is just dragging down that overall morale? What do you think SLP is needing when they have the judgmental thoughts that teachers are so unhappy and gossipy? And everybody's thinking in that chat box there. What could our needs be? Yeah. Rest and relaxation at lunch. Yes. Safety. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Melanie. Safety. Maybe some closeness, maybe some community. Work-free lunch break from your brain. Yeah, so some peace. I'm hearing maybe some peace, some ease. Yeah, some space. Absolutely. Structure and clarity. I like that. Structure and clarity. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for jumping in there. So there could be tons of different needs, right? And it could be any of these. And it could be, I want to be close. I really like this SPED teacher. I really like them. I kind of wish they actually didn't do this. I want to be closer to her or him or them or this person. I want to be closer to this person. Or maybe I want to have a sense of community at lunch, but these conversations aren't aligning with my values, my morals, what's important to me, right? Or my need for fun and ease at lunch, right, Christina? Like, I just want to chill here for a minute. So step 3 is now I got to strategize. How am I going to meet those needs, right? So I sit and I come up with different ways. I'm like, okay, how can I meet those needs? Maybe I really like the SPED teacher. Maybe I could offer up positive topics and say, hey, let's talk about these things at the table. Or maybe I could say to them, I really want to openly discuss my concerns with you and my need for community and closeness by avoiding discussions that could harm others. Or maybe it's like, you know what, let's get everybody happy. Maybe I'm going to strategize and go ask the principal to coordinate more team building activities at my site just to kind of raise some of that morale so there's not so many grumpy people. So we strategize ways to meet our needs. And then step 4 is that empathy again. So it's like, all right, I'm going to give empathy to myself. Like, you know what? I recognize that dealing with gossip is really challenging. It's emotionally taxing. It's challenging. And it's okay for me to acknowledge my feelings right now while I'm noticing this. Or, you know what? It's totally understandable that I'd want to work in a positive work environment, one that's uplifting and caring towards others and towards myself, my colleagues. Yeah, this is important. It matters. Or, you know what? I value my well-being. And you know what? Me taking steps to valuing my well-being is what needs to be done. And this is an act of self-care. If I approach the person or come up with strategies, this is self-care. And then we have empathy for the SPED teacher, right? Don't forget about the other person, because we sometimes get stuck in this enemy image and we forget all their other aspects of them being humans, right? We're all humans. So thinking about them, we might think, okay, you know what? Working in special education is tough. It is demanding. And you know what? Teachers got a lot of challenges on their plate. Maybe this teacher just has a lot of challenges right now and doesn't have that clarity that they need. Or, okay, seems like everybody's got different perspectives and unique experiences that might be influencing their views. Again, we don't have to agree with it. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to like it. But we are just offering up another perspective to put ourselves in someone else's shoes before we open that dialogue. So we can soften that enemy image, if you will, right? Soften that. Because both cases, what's happening is it involves empathy and it involves understanding emotions, right? The emotions of everybody, all the perspectives that are involved. So now we're creating this atmosphere of understanding, of support. We've talked about how now this is going to be more open communication for everybody so that we can start to address the challenges, not ignore, address the challenges and build this more supportive work environment. All right, I'm going to blow through one more real quick. Let's just say that your judgmental or blaming thought is, the organization that I work at, wherever that might be, your hospital, your nursing home, your school, your clinic, it's so unsupportive. They're so unappreciative. They're completely ungrateful. They're just a bunch of, right? The organization I work at is unsupportive. They're unappreciative. They're ungrateful. They're awful human beings. They just want to take our money. All right, so you've got that thought. You've identified that thought. They're unappreciative. They're ungrateful. All of those labeling terms where you're criticizing them or blaming them. Then you go to your unmet needs. Throw it in quickly if you can into the chat box. What do you think an SLP is needing when they're having thoughts about their organization being ungrateful and unappreciative? Yes, acknowledgement, validation, absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is like what every SLP is screaming right now. See me, hear me, know that I matter, I care. Affirm, yes, affirmation, absolutely. Absolutely. So important. So now that we know that, strategize. How do we get those needs met? And people don't always meet our needs, and we have to meet our needs for ourselves, but let's strategize. Maybe I need to have open communication with the team about it. Maybe I need to start some type of recognition program with my school. I remember at the non-public agency I worked at, they had a big bulletin board and little cutouts where they were like little rocket ships, and you could write the person's name and one thing that you noticed that was so awesome about them, and you pin it to the wall, and it just always cluttered up, and you could go up there and see what everyone was thinking about people. And it was just such a beautiful idea. Maybe you create that culture in your workplace. Maybe you show up with more appreciation, affirmation, validation, and acknowledgement for others, hoping to have that reciprocated in your workplace. Yeah, need to make sure others are feeling seen as well. Absolutely, Kether. We probably aren't the only ones. Absolutely, exactly. And then we show it and we hope that it's reciprocated. Empathy, to me, I understand that I've got a lot of feelings right now, and I've got this range of emotions, and it's okay that I'm feeling this way. It's okay. And I validate, this is my feeling in this moment. I recognize that, my emotions are wisdom, and this is part of my self-care. And I deserve compassion and understanding from myself as I'm going through this, right? Or again, it's okay to take necessary steps to strategize what I need to do to support my well-being, and that's okay. Empathy to others looks like, hey, I acknowledge that, this organization or this healthcare system or this admin team, they have their own experiences, their own feelings, their own challenges, and it's important to respect and understand their perspectives. I want to learn more about their perspectives and what's going on for them, what matters to them, what they're feeling and needing. So now that we've identified some observations within the workplace and we've shifted our observations into needs, built some strategies, got some empathy rolling, let's remember now the consequences to not addressing these factors in the workplace. And we talked about conflict avoidance in our previous episode on the ShiftMakers podcast. I highly recommend you check out the episode on conflict avoidance, because if we don't approach things, there's a lot that can build up inside of us, resentment, things fester, relationships diminish. So it's not a one size fit all, but we are impacted differently on a variety of different factors of how we're made up, right? And who we are and how we see things. But I know that in the last 10 or 11 years at my own agency and working with SLPs and SLPs on my team, and the challenges that they've brought to me, and even the challenges I've had myself in the trenches in these schools, I have a list and I'm going to pop it in the chat box because I'm going to see who is going to relate to this list. But these are some of the consequences that come from not addressing the challenges. So look there, increased stress, unhappiness in the job, anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues, burnout, conflicted relationships, unmotivated, loss of inspiration, decreased productivity, desire to quit, and find a new assignment. That's nobody here, right? I'm raising my hand because I've quit and left jobs, right? Because it was too difficult. Difficulty focusing or concentrating. All right, does anybody relate to any of these? Feel free to pop that in the box. I can honestly say I have experienced all of these on this list at some point in my career, from just my observations of being in different schools, working with different teams, just being an SLP. And I think the one that takes the cake for me, really, the biggest one for me personally, is unhappiness in the job. That was a big one for me, and conflicted relationships. My relationships suffered before I had nonviolent communication strategies. They suffered. They were broken, disconnected. The term burned bridges, I know all about it, right? Those were the biggest for me personally. Abigail, 100% yes. Melanie, yes. Yes, we can relate to these. It is so important to address these issues, guys, in the workplace if we want to create a healthier work environment and really support. We want more well-being. We want more happiness. We want more joy. We want to have a better overall job performance. Well, guess what? We got to take the necessary steps to do that, right? We have to be our own best friend, and we have to do that. And it's not always easy to address these challenges that we as clinicians face when we're managing our roles in the field. And we're also trying to kind of balance that in our work environment, wherever your work environment is. And in fact, our person from our questionnaire, we asked them, how do you typically handle conflicts or disagreements in your personal or your professional life? And they responded with, I try to listen, let another person express their point and ask questions, if any. Number 2, if it is a false accusation or misunderstanding, I clarify what is another person's perception of the problem prior to explaining my point of view. And number 3, if it is a minor issue, I simply agree to avoid the conflict or rebuff the attack if the escalation is unavoidable. Yeah, how many of us are avoiding conflict, or how many of us are growing bigger and stronger in that conflict, but maybe not finding the right words, the wise words to use in that conflict, and now our needs are not being met. So there are some strategies that I just said from our participant that they're employing during difficult challenges. And this really lends nicely into our next part of the episode, which is talking about what are some strategies that, Abigail says, me currently. All right, Abigail, I'm sending you my heart, girl, because I know it's tough. It is challenging. It's challenging times. We already have so much on our plates that it certainly just adds more and can feel like a burden. Absolutely. All right, so let's discuss some strategies for how do we maintain this emotional resilience, build our emotional resilience, and then maintain it and our empowerment when we are faced with negativity and adversity from others. So I want to start by kind of just throwing out a quick definition of emotional resilience. And this is according to positivepsychology.com. So emotional resilience is when you're able to calm your frantic mind after encountering a negative experience. It is intrinsic motivation, very important. An inner force, very important, by which we can hold ourselves through the downsides of life. And then empowerment is the process of gaining freedom and the power to do what you want to do or to control what happens to you. Okay. So here we're discussing strategies again for maintaining emotional resilience and empowerment in the face of adversity and negativity. What do we do? I want you to take a quick moment, a little experiential exercise, and I want you to reflect on a time when you noticed some observations, maybe that we discussed today in the workplace or others, in your own workplace culture or environment that lowered your well-being, okay, or created this discomfort in the workplace. And I want you to kind of remember that now, the details of the assignment, where you were, who was around you. Think about that for a moment. I'm getting one in my head. I have a few. I'm going to hone in on one. For some of you who say me currently, Abigail, think of something you're involved in right now. And I want you to reflect on how you're feeling or how you felt in that challenging time. What are some of the emotions that came up for you or are coming up for you? Was there disappointment? Was there anger, sadness, loneliness, uncertainty, hopelessness? Yeah, anxiousness. Yeah, Abigail, anxiousness. Maybe some fear. I had fear. I had stress. Think about what was alive for you. And I want you to think about, who did you turn to for support during this time? Was it your family? Was it a colleague? Was it just yourself? Was it nobody? And what did you tell yourself or others about the situation? What was your story? Think back on your story or your current story. Is there blame? And it's okay. Is there criticism, judgment? Are we diagnosing others as liars, abusers, users, idiots? And do you find yourself in this current situation or in the past current situation? Did you advocate for your needs or state your boundaries? And if so, who did you speak with? Did you find yourself just kind of mumbling off to the side and kind of complaining to colleagues? Were you like the SPED teacher, rattling it off at the cafeteria at lunch? Did you bring it to your boss after work on the drive home? Or did you just keep it inside with your head down each day, just trying to strategize your exit plan? How the heck am I going to get out of here? That's what I did. Kept my head down and I thought, how am I going to get out of here? Larry is sharing, I realized the other person did not care what others think, and they were not going to admit wrongdoing or a need to change. I withdrew. Absolutely. You met your needs, Larry, and that was the answer that you needed to do. You had needs in that moment. You had needs for a shared reality, maybe, on how things were being seen. And that need wasn't met, and it was time for you to go. And that was the need that had to be met at that time. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Allie, I didn't know who to speak with. Yeah. It seems like you had a need for support, Allie, someone to go to, someone to care, someone to hear you and support you. I want to come back to this reflection in just a little bit later on. Thank you to those of you who reflected on this memory, because everybody's individual experience is going to look so different, right? Because we all have our own inner armor on how or if we'll handle conflict, how we'll deal with it. And if you want to better understand your own habitual styles to responding to conflict, be sure again to check out episode 3. This is so very important in this podcast series because we touch on 4 common response styles to conflict, and we break down the importance of those, understanding those, the pros, the cons, and how to reshift our thinking into this new way of advocating, self-advocacy, and clear boundaries. So let's talk now specifically about different strategies for maintaining emotional resilience and empowerment in the face of negativity and adversity. And these are listed in your handout for you. So you don't have to try to quickly take notes. They are available for you when you go back and grab that handout. But the 4 most important aspects I want to address align with the framework of compassionate communication. And this is really cultivating 1, our self-awareness, 2, our empathetic communication, 3, the nonviolent communication process, and 4, a gratitude practice. I'm going to pop it in there in case you don't have it in front of you so you can follow along. I know I'm a visual learner, so I want to support you if you are also. And I want to broad stroke these 4 bullet points that I just threw up here in this box for you, because honestly, we could probably do a full episode on each one of those. There's just so much packed into all of this, but for the interest of time, I'm going to just give you the highlights so I don't have you here until the morning. But the first one is self-awareness. It's just what it sounds like. We're becoming aware of oneself. That's it, right? And you can practice mindfulness or practice awareness, if you prefer the term presence or awareness, to just connect with your emotions. For some people, this is really hard to do, and I appreciate that, and I hear you. If you can, try to connect to your emotions without judgment. So notice what you're feeling in the moment, right? So let's identify those triggers that led to negative emotions, right? So this is when your well-being is impacted. My well-being is impacted. My well-being is not impacted. It's not really a trigger, right? And then I'm going to acknowledge those feelings, recognize them. I'm going to accept them without self-criticism for having them, right? Because we know, we've kind of talked about this on other episodes, how emotions are wisdom. They're carrying golden nuggets to let you know what needs are met or not met. And then we've got empathetic communication. So that's use the active listening, right? So we all know what active listening is, to really understand others' perspectives, right? We're emptying out our faculties. We're fully present. We're trying to let go of our conditioning and our biases as best as we can to really be here with you, to understand diverse and unique and just everyone's perspective. And then we express that empathy, right? By acknowledging, okay, this is what you're feeling. This is what you're needing. So, I'm hearing that you're angry and you have a need for respect. That's what's really lying underneath all the words that are kind of coming at me right now, right? Again, not agreeing with what's being said or how it's being said or how you're being treated, but rather seeing in their reality beneath the words, what are the needs? What are the emotions in the situation for the other person? And then you avoid that blame or judgment in your communication. And in your workbook to download that QR code I mentioned, I have a word bank of universal feelings and also a word bank of universal needs to support you when you go to self-advocate and create boundaries and create your texts, your emails, your communication, your TED Talks, words that you can use and this will help build your emotional vocabulary and your needs vocabulary if you need support in that area because they're universal. Step 3 is the nonviolent communication process. This is what we've been talking about in each one of these episodes, the 4-step process where we're describing a situation without evaluating it, okay, the observation piece. We're identifying and expressing our feelings unique to us. We're identifying and expressing the needs, and then we're making clear, positive, actionable requests to meet those needs. We're strategizing. And the 4th is a gratitude practice. And this is cultivating this mindset of appreciation, of acknowledgement, the things we kind of threw out in the chat box earlier, right? These positive aspects of your life, your job, your colleagues, your family, and then reflecting on these things that you're thankful for, because this now can shift your attention away from negativity and help build that resilience. I'm going to go through these with an example. This might feel heavy and like a lot of information, but remember that when we are building our emotional resilience or strengthening our emotional resilience, it's an ongoing process, and you can start anywhere, anytime to incorporate these strategies to various situations, and regular practice of these skills support the empathy, the understanding, the positive connection, all those elements of compassionate communication. Let me run through the 4 steps with our participant who said that first time in their life, they were exposed to the toxic work culture. 2 out of 3 teachers at the daycare ignored the hello each time they came for the session, that the participant didn't get thanked for their work, and the gift that they gave the student was removed, but the other kids still had their gifts, and that their child was still making progress throughout the therapy sessions with this individual, with the case participant. So if I wanted to work through this situation with our 4 steps to maintaining emotional resilience and empowerment, and I go and I connect with number 1, which is self-awareness. This is connecting to ourselves. Maybe our participant is feeling angry. Maybe they're feeling alone, upset, or frustrated. And we name those, right, as messengers, again, that carry wisdom. And the participant can identify the triggers or the stimulus, not the cause, that impacts the emotion. So when our participant says hello to colleagues and colleagues don't say hello back, participant feels disappointed. Or when the participant sees that the toy has been taken away from the student, participant feels frustrated. When participant's not thanked for their work, participant feels saddened, right? So we've identified the triggers of the situation that are a stimulus to the feelings. Let's go on to empathetic communication with our example. So here's what this looks like. You take a moment, you put yourself in someone else's shoes or in your own if you're doing self-empathy. If we're trying to understand others' perspectives, which is hard to do, we might make a guess because we don't really know, right? And we make a guess as to how they might be feeling and what they might be needing. So I might say, okay, maybe those 2 out of 3 teachers, what they're feeling and needing when they're not saying hello in response to our case participant coming in and saying hello. Are they feeling rushed? Are they feeling overwhelmed and they have a need for understanding that they didn't get to the high? I don't know, right? I'm just kind of throwing things out there. We just look at all the possibilities and all the perspectives, and we boil it down to the simple fact that as humans, we all have universal feelings and needs. They are meeting one of their needs or not having a need met in their behaviors and actions. So it's like, okay, what are the 2 out of 3 teachers needing or feeling when they take a toy away from a student that was given by our case participant? Could they be feeling concern over the safety of that particular toy that was given to the student? Again, not saying it's right or wrong, their actions. We're not saying their actions were right or wrong. We're brainstorming different ways to think about it. What else? When they're not expressing appreciation or gratitude, we talked about this. Are they kind of feeling upset or exhausted by maybe their own needs for appreciation not being met? Maybe they're not receiving appreciation, so therefore they're not reciprocating appreciation. We don't know. We try to think about this, right? We try to help diffuse conflict. by moving away from the life alienating communication, those thoughts, right? Moving away from placing blame or thinking who is right or who is wrong in these situations, who needs to be punished, so that we can get more clarity in our communication before we approach the individuals. So we're just softening it a bit before we approach the individuals. Now we've got the nonviolent communication process. So this is framing our communication, our speaking, or how we're listening, or how we're hearing things, right? In a way that inspires compassion, understanding. Those words come up a lot: compassion, understanding. So you've got observations, feelings, needs, requests. So again, this framework, and you have this in your workbook that you can download. I have the framework listed out, and I also have some scripts on how you can create your sentences and fill in some words from those vocabulary banks when you're advocating for yourself. But let's look at our case participant, for example. All right, so if we're going to observe, we describe the situation without evaluation or judgment. We say, hey, when I notice that you don't respond to my hello, I feel disappointed because I have a need for consideration and closeness with my colleagues that are on site. I really value positive work interactions. Would you be willing to share your perspective on what I just said and discuss how we can maybe increase our acknowledgments of one another at work? So listen for these sentence frames again. When I see, observe, or notice, I feel because I need, value, or desire. Would you be willing to? Okay, so listen for these in my next communication attempt regarding our participant situation, if I'm going to address the teachers on site. When I notice that the other children in the group have their favorite toys and the gift I gave them was removed, I feel confused and saddened by this. I have a need for respect and for collaboration in the workplace. Would you be willing to share your perspective on why the toy was removed from the student? And maybe we can discuss ways that we could strategize a solution to this that meets both of our needs and maybe also considers the needs of my student. Last step, cultivating a gratitude practice. Guys, this is a gift you're giving yourself. A gratitude practice is a gift you give yourself, okay? There is so much evidence-based research on gratitude that is accumulating and growing that is out there for my research lovers. If we had more time, I'd go through it with you. But I do believe I talk about it on another podcast on Keys for SLPs with Mary Beth Hines, if you want to check out the gratitude episode. But when you implement this kind of practice, right, the research shows that this helps to lower our stress, increase our happiness, bring more joy, more well-being. I want to sign up for that, right? So you can journal, you can say your gratitude out loud, you can say it silently in your mind, but what you're doing is you're intentionally focusing on just the positive things in your environment, intentionally, right? We heard our participant share the gains that their student was making. So for a participant, this might look like they're mentally thinking, or maybe they're writing it down or thinking about it in the car on their way home. Hey, you know what? I'm grateful my student is using please and thank you. I'm grateful that my student communicated their wants and needs today. Hey, I'm grateful. I was pretty resilient, right? I stayed positive when those teachers didn't say hi to me. You know what? I'm going to take a moment and celebrate myself. I'm really proud of my handling of that situation. Or I'm grateful for this coffee I just got in the drive-thru at my favorite coffee shop, right? Or my workspace, or the sunlight that is coming in through my window after many days of rain. We cultivate that gratitude. So those are the 4 steps. Okay. And again, they're listed in your handout for you to think about. It's an invitation to consider, to practice. The goal is really to strengthen our inner resources and our resilience. And there's a pathway. There's a pathway to doing that for yourself. And it can include cultivating more self-awareness and presence, right? That mindfulness, that presence, that awareness in the moment. Our empathetic communication, that nonviolent or compassionate communication process we just shared, and that gratitude practice. Those are some steps on this pathway to support you. Again, I want to point out, does not mean we are accepting our situations, nor should we accept them, right? In the face of adversity and say that's okay, it's not okay, right? Not that we should just deal with it with our heads down. No, but rather we're building our inner resources, right? So that we can rise to the challenge in the face of adversity, where we are as strong, resilient warriors. Guys, we are authentic warriors who are coming to the table, proud of the way we're handling ourselves, so that when we leave after the fact, there's no regret. I run into you, or you that I had conflict with later on down the street at the mall or grocery store, I can hang my head high, right, for how I chose to show up in that conflict. So now I'm curious, as we're wrapping up, I want you to all think about that conflict, right, that you had when I told you to reflect on where you were, who you were with, who was around, and you were identify your feelings. Can you empathize right now, thinking of that situation, or those of you who are in it in the moment? Can you empathize with others who are involved in that conflict or challenge? Is it possible for you to list out that nonviolent communication process in your mind? When I observe, I feel, because I need, would you be willing to? Can you imagine what those statements would look like now after the fact, after the conversation or the challenge? And this is a skillful practice. To give this a try, to journal about it after the fact. This supports you with your learning so that you're prepared for the next time you're faced with a challenge. And guess what? Challenges keep coming. And then lastly, the situation that you're reflecting on, can you see the gold in it? Is there any moments to be grateful for? Can you find any gratitude, any silver linings? Or as I say, finding the gold in those moments that were challenging and hard. I want to embrace this compassionate communication in my own life. I want to invite you guys to embrace it in all of your life. This has been and is such a powerful tool for creating positive changes in your professional relationships and in those challenging environments that we've talked about today that have come up in the chat box. I have so many amazing resources to support you with this, starting with that downloadable workbook. So go ahead and grab that. You're going to love that. You have the ability to be a shift maker, right? You can choose how you want to show up. You can be someone who can influence this positive change in your workplace and create a ripple effect out that is going to support so many, your colleagues, your clients, your families, and so on. And in your daily interactions, you can start to slowly begin to use nonviolent communication, that 4-step pathway. When you're writing your texts, when you're sending your emails, when you're talking to your pet at home, when you're sitting in those IEP meetings, right? Or when you're at home connecting with your kids or your loved ones. I do talk to my 3-pound Yorkie. I do practice it on my 3-pound Yorkie. He loves it. There is a power, I kid you not, that comes from using this practice. I have had other therapists literally tell me the results they see overnight. These results can happen right away. It doesn't take a lifetime to get them, where you just start to soften, where you start to notice others soften, right? When we use it to navigate challenges and resolve these conflicts that are coming up for us, we're contributing now. We are, and that's one of my needs. One of my needs is contribution. I want to contribute positivity. I want to contribute to collaboration. I love to collaborate. I want it to work. I want to be in a work environment that's creative, where everybody's opinion matters and unique and diverse perspectives are welcomed and celebrated. So I can't stress enough to you the importance of building these deeper, these more authentic connections in your workplace. I've seen such a difference in mine, and compassionate communication really is a tool to help you do that. I've actually shared this with so many NVC deep dive participants through speechtherapypd.com, with my own team at Golden State. I've shared this at organizations that I have been working with, and the feedback is so positive and it's noteworthy. It's like what do they say? Something's in the pudding. The results are in the pudding. Does anybody know that phrase? I don't know that phrase. Help me out if anybody's in there with something. You see it in the pudding or something. But the transformations I get to hear about literally blow my mind. And you don't need a lot of experience to. Where can I fill out a form and tell you about my 8 years of stress? Yes, Jody, I'm emailing you that form. Proof is in the pudding. Thank you, Christina. Yes, Abigail, thank you for showing up for me. I was having word finding difficulties. Very good. Yes. All right, guys, I challenge you. Commit to personal growth through the ongoing practice of compassionate communication. Positive change starts with you. I have numerous courses on speechtherapypd.com that you can check out and learn more on gratitude, mindfulness, strengthening your presence, compassionate communication, interprofessional collaboration. It's all there on speechtherapypd.com. If you want to learn more about it and this kind of stuff resonates with you, you can also go to my website, goldenstateofmindpd.com. You can learn more about me, my resources. You can be on my email list. I just met somebody today who was like, oh, I'm on your email list. I was like, you're kidding. And they were telling me how they appreciate the different resources I send out. I don't send them out often. I'm not going to blow up your emails, but I do send the good ones. So if you want to be an email subscriber, you can find that on my website. Compassionate communication has been a game changer for me. I want it to be a game changer for you. I want you to see the same results too. I think you owe it to your future self. I really do. Consider your future self right now, looking back at you, giving you a high five to your current self, like, yeah, good job doing that thing, right? So thank you so much. I want to end on a poem. We're right on the hour. Thank you for just hearing this last minute here. This is a poem called Unconditional. Willing to experience aloneness, I discover connection everywhere. Turning to face my fear, I meet the warrior who lives within. Opening to my loss, I gain the embrace of the universe. Surrendering into emptiness, I find fulfillment without end. Each condition I flee from pursues me. Each condition I welcome transforms me, and it becomes itself transformed into its radiant jewel-like essence. I bow to the one who has made it so, who has crafted this master game. To play it is purest delight. To honor its form, true devotion. And that's by Jennifer Payne Wellwood. All right, there you have it, everybody. You're walking out of here with ways to identify and address workplace challenges with NVC, specific NVC techniques for resilience and empowerment, and my little kind of 5-minute TED talk to motivate you for compassionate communication and to support you with positive change in your professional relationships through these tools. I want to close out what's alive for you guys right now. Pop in one feeling as we say goodnight on how you're feeling right now as we head out from this session together. Let me know what you're feeling or any needs have been met, even needs not met. Grateful. Yes. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you for your contributions. Yes. Revive. Woohoo. So good. And not emotional whirlwind. Thankful. All right. Excellent, everybody. So good to see you. I see Tabby, if you could grab that email that is in the chat box, we can make sure we get Joni the information that they are seeking. That would be fabulous. All right, everybody. If there's not any questions, if you have a question, Allie, thank you very much. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, now is the time to throw them into the chat box. If there's no questions, I'm going to say blessings to you all. All right, everybody, I don't see any questions coming in. Thank you again for being here. Thank you to speechtherapypd.com for this opportunity. Good night, everybody, and blessings.
Thank you for joining us for today's course. To complete the course, you must log into your account and complete the quiz and the survey. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete mailing address in your account profile prior to course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to reflect on your ASHA transcript. Please note that if this information is missing, we cannot submit to ASHA on your behalf. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining us at SLP Learning Series. Remember to go to speechtherapypd.com to learn more about earning ASHA CEUs. We appreciate your positive reviews and support and would love for you to write a quick review and subscribe. If you like this and want to hear more, we are offering an audio course subscription special coupon code to listeners of this podcast. Type the word SLP Learn for $20 off. With hundreds of audio courses on demand and new courses released weekly, it's only $59 per year with the code. Visit speechtherapypd.com and start earning ASHA CEUs today.